Hi, and welcome back to the Fantasy Football Profits YouTube page. As always, I'm Christian Skutovic, joined here by Robert Skutovic. Today we're going to be talking about the most underrated fantasy players right now. These are players, unlike the last video, who will be taking too late, and you can capitalize on these players and you're going to want to draft them because they have a lot of talent and are kind of being so-called disrespected. As always, before we get started, I'm going to give you the chance, Rob, to say anything you'd like to say about it. If you want to mention the ADP, that'd be great.
Yeah, we were going to base on your average draft position. This is really important if you're going to have a good, effective draft, is knowing where to take guys. Once again, like we said before, what makes a pick a good draft pick is not necessarily how they score, even the year that they have, but where you got them in the draft. If I take Odell Beckham in the first round, he ends up with 65 catches for 1,000 yards and 8 TDs. I'm going to be very disappointed. Yet if I take a wide receiver in the 10th round and he has 1,000 yards and 8 TDs, that was a good draft pick.
Yeah.
It's also important to know when you can take him. Why take a guy in the second round if you notice that he can slip till the 5th round, you can load up your talent. And then here's the other thing, that I've made this mistake before, where I get excited about a guy, I have a strong hunch about him, and I estimate where I think I can take him, thinking he's going to slip, and before you know it, he gets snatched off the board. Now I lost out on a guy that I felt really strongly about. So once again, it's important to know where guys are trending, where they're being drafted on average. Now, right now we're in early August. These are the trends that we have, the average draft position based on August 6th. They'll change in a couple weeks, and maybe we'll update you on some of these things. So I'll begin with my first guy that I have that is undervalued. Now, this guy I believe is undervalued. It's Lamar Miller, running back of Houston. Now, here's why I like Lamar Miller, and then I'll tell you why I think that he's a good value. One, he's still young, and he's a three-down back, meaning that he can catch the ball in the backfield, he can run the ball, he can do all the things that he needs to do. He gets goal line carries. Now, last year, some would say he had a disappointing year. In a lot of ways, he did. Okay, but I think if you look a little bit closer, you find out he actually had a pretty good year, all things considered. Okay, let me explain. One, he had 1,000 yards, and that was in spite of missing 2 games. Okay. He only had 6 TDs, but once again, he only played in 14 games. And what really hurt him last year was the quarterback play. Brock Osweiler was horrendous. And not only did he hurt Lamar Miller, but he hurt Hopkins and many other players on that team. That whole experiment was a mistake. And so I think that quarterback play is really what hurt that offense as a whole. Now this year they're going to have a new quarterback. In fact, right now the rookie is doing great. It sounds like the reports are coming out that he's doing wonderful. Any quarterback play is going to be an increase of what Brock brought to the table. He showed last year that he can be a workhorse, that he can carry the load, and I think he's going to have a lot of opportunities. And that's, to me, half the battle in fantasy, is just trying to find a running back who's not doing the running back by committee. And right now there's really no competition. This is his team. He is the #1 guy. In fact, the only guy right now would be rookie Dante Foreman, who just got charged and arrested on drug and weapons charges. So right now, this is his team. He's the #1 guy. I think the opportunity for him to be a workhorse, have over 1,000 yards, get 40, 50 catches, once again, he could be a real steal for you. Now, here's why he's a great value. His average draft position is 29 right now, so that puts him in the 3rd round if you're in a 12-team league. And he's being taken after players like Fournette and Gurley. Okay, right now when I look at those guys, especially Todd Gurley, there's too many question marks there. The Rams are rebuilding. There's nothing that's really changed last year to tell me that Todd Gurley is going to have a rebound year per se. And yet, the other thing about Gurley is he's still relatively young. He's played in the league 2 years. He's had one really good year and one really horrendous year. Lamar Miller's got a bigger body of work. He's more proven, more dependable. And so for me, it's a safer pick. I'd rather have Lamar Miller on that team, for example, than Todd Gurley. So once again, I think that he is somebody that is undervalued right now that you could get in the 3rd round. He could be a very solid back for you. That is Lamar Miller. Christian, your first guy?
All right, Rob, thank you. My first guy is Paul Perkins. So according to the average ADP, he's being taken 75th overall and being ranked as the 29th running back. Once again, according to the average ADP. And I think that is terribly low. I have him in the top 20. First of all, simply because that's his job. Paul Perkins is the New York Giants running back. He is the starter. He has no one to contend with him. The only other running back on that team that will see time on the field that is going to play is Shane Vereen. And even he is very limited to being a 3rd down receiving back, something that Paul Perkins very well can do. Another thing to take note is Paul Perkins didn't have a very great season last year, but you have to look sometimes a little bit deeper, not just as their season as a whole stats, but into their game log. And if you look at their game log, you found the last 5 games he really exploded. So every game in the last 5 games, he gained more yards than he ever have, getting 38, 45, 56, 68, and finally 102, finally breaking that 100-yard mark. They finally started to give him carries, began using him in the passing game, and he kind of slowly started to develop into the guy that we know that he can be, this talented back that I kind of thought was going to be a little bit better this year, but I think this is the year for him. And another reason that I think he's being taken way too low is just when you look at average ADP and the players who are being taken ahead of him, such as Amir Abdullah, CJ Anderson, and Danny Woodhead. Amir Abdullah has been injury prone, less than impressive, and on a team with other running backs like Theo Riddick, who can do the exact same thing that he can. CJ Anderson, who has been kind of horrendous, has been quite terrible and less than great, and Danny Woodhead, who at best is good in a PPR league, but outside of a PPR league, he's not. So Paul Perkins got to take this guy. That's his job. Why not take a shot a little bit earlier on a running back who has got the role there? He could be huge this season. So what do you think, Rob? What about you? You got your number 2 guy?
Yeah, well, to comment on Paul Perkins, I like him actually. I think he's a running back I've got my eye on. I think you could actually get him later. I think that he'll actually fall farther than where that site had him listed as far as his ADP. And so once again, you have to be careful. You don't want him so far that you miss out on him. But I think he's a guy that you could let fall, steal, and he could become a great number 2 back on your team. So I like that pick.
Well, yeah, exactly. I mean, we're talking about players who are being undervalued, but that's not to say you need to take them earlier than where they're at. When you look at where they're at, this is where they're going to be taken, so you might as well wait till then. But remember that they're undervalued, and when the time comes, take them. So who's your second guy, Rob?
Yeah, my second guy is LeGarrette Blount. Okay, for me, he is undervalued. Now, I like LeGarrette Blount for a lot of reasons. I think he landed in a great situation there in Philadelphia to run the ball. And he goes to a team where Wentz really struggled last year. He started off with 7 touchdown passes to 1. His first 4 games, the guy was looking lights out. He had a quarterback rating of over 103 times. And then after that, he really fell off. His quarterback rating plummeted the last 12 games. We see his touchdown to interception ratio was 9-13 down the stretch. And so he's a young quarterback that I think has got a bright future, but he's still young. And I think this team's going to want to protect him, run the ball. Blount's the type of guy that can do that. He's big, he's physical. Another thing that I like about him is that there's reports that Ryan Matthews is going to be cut before the season to save money. So once again, it just shows us that Blount is the number 1 guy. Okay, so I like him for that reason, but here's why he's a great value. Here's why Blount's a great value. His average draft position, and I couldn't believe this. When I saw this, I thought, this is insane, okay? To get a number 2 back, okay? But right now his average draft position is 90, okay? That means they're taking 35 backs ahead of him, and a lot of those backs are number 2 guys on their team, okay? And so Blount he's 90 overall, 35 backs on average to be taken ahead of him, okay? In a 12-team league, that puts him in the 9th round. I mean, that is a steal. And so I hope in the leagues that I'm at, he'll fall that far, because I would love to take him. I'll take him in, 8, 7, 6 round even, and he'd be a great steal. I can't believe that Blount is being so undervalued at this point. So that's my number 2 guy is LeGarrette Blount, running back of Philadelphia.
All right, so my number 2 guy is Brandon Marshall. Right now he's being ranked as the 34th receiver and being taken 69th overall. This is unbelievable for a wide receiver who might make the Hall of Fame. For a wide receiver who 8 times in his 11-year career has reached 1,000 yards. That's insane that he's that low. Now, a lot of people were scared because last year had an off year, but I don't think we should be scared. His quarterback was brutal. That situation was so bad, so less than desirable. I mean, you cannot blame the guy for wanting to get out there as soon as he could, and he did. And now he's playing for Eli Manning, probably, arguably, the best quarterback that he's ever had, other than maybe Jay Cutler, one of those 2. But Eli Manning is much improved to Fitzpatrick or Geno Smith or the multiple other guys who came in off the bench and were horrendous for the Jets. Another thing that's important is that's a huge passing offense there for the Giants. A lot of people are scared because Odell Beckham's there, because there's talent there, that he's not going to get his share of catches and targets. I tell you what, he's going to. They love to throw the ball, and I'm excited to see what he can do now that he's not going to get that #1 corner. See this aging a little bit. He might not be at the peak of his career, but he's still unbelievable talent, and he's not going to be facing the #1 corner. But finally, he's being taken behind Julian Edelman and Martavis Bryant. That just doesn't seem right. I mean, that's what the ADPs are saying, but why in the world would you take a guy like Martavis Bryant, who we barely have any game time of him? We've barely seen him play. He's constantly in trouble and unable to play due to suspension, and yet you're going to take him over Brandon Marshall, who's finding a new team, a better quarterback? That just doesn't seem right to me. So that's my #2 guy. Rob, who's your #3?
Yeah, I'll give my #3. I like that pick. In fact, I was going to go that route. I really like Brandon Marshall. I think his whole career he's been undervalued. In fact, you talked about his 8 times he had 1,000 yards, but 6 times in his career he's had over 100 catches. He's a great, and I think he's somebody who should be considered for the Hall of Fame. Whatever you might think about his character, he's very talented. Then the other thing, Martavis Bryant, you talked about him, but right now the NFL hasn't even reinstated him yet, and so as of now he's not even reinstated. So I agree with you. I think Martavis Bryant is definitely overvalued, and I think Brandon Marshall's a great pick. My last guy here that I think is undervalued is Jordan Reed, and I'll tell you why I like him, and I'll tell you why I think that he's a great value. Okay, last year he was banged up a lot. Okay, a lot of injuries. He was in the field. He even played through a lot of injuries. But yet, in spite of it, there are times when he was healthy, you could see that he can be a dominant #1 guy. Washington loves to use their tight ends. And now with Garcon and Jackson out of the picture, I think he's going to get more targets. And so once again, Jordan Reed, I think, is a quality tight end. The only question mark is his health. If he can stay healthy. But once again, here's why he's a good value. He's got the talent, but currently he's sitting at an average draft position of 49. Okay. When I compare them to other tight ends, he's 49, and Kelsey's taken 29th, and Gronk is taken 20th. Okay. That puts Reed in the 5th round. That's about 2 to 2.5 rounds behind Gronk and Kelsey. So you can get a guy that really, in theory, that if he's healthy and he plays this year, could put up just as good, if not better numbers than those 2 guys. But you can take him 2.5 rounds later and load up your team. I think Jordan Reed's a great guy. So here's what I'd do if I was you. Go ahead and load up your team with quality players, wide receivers, running backs. And then mid to late 4th round, you could steal Reed and have yourself a great tight end. I think, once again, he's being undervalued at this point. Christian, who's your final guy?
Yeah, well, before I get to my final guy, I just have to agree with you so much. He's a guy I loved coming into the season, and I cannot believe how far down he fell. And it's funny that you mentioned LeGarrette Blount mistakenly. I have LeGarrette Blount. That's how much we both like this guy. 90th overall is just way too low. That is horrible. That's about 8th round pick. So, you already kind of talked about it, but I'll just maybe get into it a little bit. One of the reasons that I like him is because he finds the end zone. Last year he got 18 touchdowns. Now I'm not saying he's going to get 18 touchdowns again, but a guy who got 18 touchdowns last season comes into a new team and is the starting running back. You expect that he's not going to be that good. You expect him to be a 9th round pick. That's just absurd to me, especially on an offense with a young quarterback. You know that they're going to be pounding the ball with LeGarrette Blount all day, especially in that red zone. So I'm really excited to see he can do it. But finally, Matthew's recent release, along with his health issues in his neck, mean that he has basically no competition for the starting job. I mean, basically the only other guy there is Wendell Smallwood. I really don't think that he's going to take over that job. He's not a workhorse back or anything. So I just love that situation. And like what you said, that is so unbelievably low. I mean, I don't know if I've ever seen a player so highly valued so far down. I'm not saying that he needs to be a 1st or 2nd round pick, but I mean, you can get him in the 6th round or 7th round. That's a steal. That's a great pick right there. So really excited about LeGarrette Blount. As always, as we say, picks aren't just valuable for what they do during the season, they're valuable for when you take them. So that's why we're doing these videos here on most over and undervalued players. I don't know if you have anything to say before we finish off.
Yeah, this is once again where the players are. Here, you go back to LeGarrette Blount. We both like him. We didn't talk ahead of time on who we were going to have, so it's funny that we lined up on that. That might tell you some hope we were right on this. You mentioned there, and I've seen your notes, that it discusses players that are being taken before Blount. You talk about Riddick and you talk about Doug Martin. That's crazy to think that Doug Martin's being taken ahead of him. Right now he's going to miss a few games because of suspension. And Doug Martin's got back-to-back years of struggling that he hasn't looked well, so we don't know what Doug Martin we're going to see. It just, to me, those are big question marks why you'd want to take him. What I do expect, though, between now and the start of the season, there might be an adjustment. You know, as information comes in and people begin to look at, just like we are looking at average draft positions, you know, maybe right now look at Blunt's taken around the 9th round, but maybe as we get closer to the draft dates, maybe he'll get bumped up a little bit. But this is where he stands right now. Great pick. So once again, we're going to continue to give you guys updated information.
Well, it's funny that you should mention that. The other guy, Theo Riddick, here's what's unbelievable. Theo Riddick is ranked, according to ADP, to be the second running back to Amir Abdullah. And yet the second running back on a team that has had notoriously bad running backs for over a decade now is ranked above a guy who got 18 touchdowns last year and really proved himself. I just think that's insane how that works itself out. But as always, once again, we thank you guys for watching. Keep coming back for more, and you have a great day. God bless.